All right, another really cool feature that we find in Illustrator and in other Adobe products is putting type on a path. So we can make type, if we were to make a wavy path here that almost mirrored the shape of the trout, we could set type that would match that same bend and wave. We can make it go around circles. We can do all sorts of really cool things. So type on a path can either be on the edge of an open path, like I had mentioned originally, or a closed path, like a circle. Let's select this badge again, excuse me, with our type tool. And let's zoom in on it so we can see what we're working with. And we're going to select the type tool. And we're going to bring our cursor over the area and we'll see this black line. So the reason that this line is here and it's not a full circle, it's not really part of the badge itself, this line was created only for the reason for us to be able to put type on this path. Once we click to put type on this path, the path itself goes away and isn't visible and doesn't print. So with our type tool, we're going to take our cursor over the left end of this path, and when our cursor changes, and it's going to change to, it's kind of hard to see to be honest, there's a squiggly line, I don't know if you can see that through there, kind of makes a squiggly line from the left to the right through the insertion point. When you see that, you can click, and that puts, wow, that puts our lorem ipsum text on the path. And our problem is we have giant type. A little crazy. Let's go to our window and choose type, and then choose paragraph styles. And remember, we had some paragraph styles already, and we want to just click on the normal one. That's just going to bring it back to the basic font with no special stylizing. So that's one way of doing it. We could have gone over here and changed the details as well, but this is a quick way. I'll just leave that open. Where the lorem ipsum is starting to show up, we're just going to type in all lowercase, good for you. Notice it's following along on this path. We're going to do a Command A to select it all. And while we're here, we're going to stylize it. So in our appearance panel, we're going to make it the strawberry color. We are going to keep it at Oswald regular, but we're going to bump it up to 16-point type. And then if we want it to be all caps, we could always go down to the more options and click on the all caps down here. Or there's also a way in our type menu to do the same thing. We can choose type and then change case to uppercase. So more than one way to skin a cat here yet again. All right, make sure that you're zoomed in enough that you can really see the start point and the end point of what was this path that our type is working on right now. And with our selection tool, I want you to notice that there is a line here with a square on it. That's our left-hand side. This is our center point of the type on the path. And then as we follow it around, here is the end point of this path. So we can push this type around and try to center it better, or we can move it wherever we want on this path, basically. So we're going to hover over the line on the left edge of the text, just to the left of the G in good, and we're going to wait for our cursor to change into this one. Do you see how I have a little right-facing arrow? And when I see that, I can then drag this, and now I can, whoops, move it around here however I would like. Okay, so that spun it around on that path. And we also have alignment right now. This is aligned left. If I told it to center, it would go to use that center point and it would put half on one side and half on the other. So When you're doing this, you can maybe try these alignments first, and then if that doesn't work, you can pull it back and forth this way. Now, if you go too far and you hit the end point down here, notice my words are just disappearing and I'm getting the overset type. So you have to be careful that you keep it within the boundaries of this path that you have. So let's see, we accomplished that. Working with type on a path, we can click away. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And again, I want to stress that that shape here that they had drawn in for us, this half circle right here, the only purpose for it was so that we could put text on that path. You have to have a line first to do it. So they provided us with the line or the path. All right, one last thing in this chapter, and it's about converting text to outlines. And let's see, fit all in the window so we can see both. And when you would do this is sometimes maybe you want to convert this letter R into an actual shape that looks like an R that has anchor points all around it, and then we could use our direct selection tool and we could maybe make this part longer, or we could make it flared out or whatever. We treat it as a vector graphic. You might want to do that. Or sometimes you don't necessarily want to send along a specialty font, and rather than doing that, you just turn it into outlines. The problem is it's no longer editable. So you have to think about, this is kind of a one-way street for them. If you send it to them and they find a typo, but you've already turned it into vector art, not a font, they can't fix it. With our selection tool, let's drag across the text grilled rainbow trout over here to select both of those. And what we're going to do is kind of weird, but it makes sense. We're going to do an edit, copy. So we now have a copy of it made. And then this one, the copy isn't anywhere yet. We haven't pasted it. It's just in the virtual memory of the computer. The one that we have selected, we're going to hide temporarily. So we're going to do an object, hide selection. So it disappears. Now, the stuff that we had copied and it's hanging out in virtual memory, we're going to do an edit, paste in front. So it comes back in the exact same positioning, but on top of the layer stack of where the other one would have been. The reason we did this is if we go into our layer stack, we actually have two versions of this. We have one that's locked and hidden right now, or it's just hidden. And that one is still fonts that can be editable. The one that we're working on now, we are going to turn into outlines. So we're going to go up to type, and then we're going to choose create outlines. There you are. And perhaps it only did the top word. I'm not sure I had them both selected. But notice how when I go into here now, I'm going to click away. The letter G actually has a bunch of anchor points, and I can tweak them. So I could take in my direct selection tool, I could do that if I wanted to. I could do whatever I wanted to tweak this. Far more often, the reason you're doing this is not to necessarily customize, it's just to turn it into basically a shape that can't be screwed up. What if they don't have the font? And yes, you're always supposed to send them along, but it's kind of a way of guaranteeing they're not going to go in and edit also because they have nothing to edit. We could do the same thing with any of our things, but what we typically don't do, I'm just going to zoom out, is we typically don't do this with body copy. That's just overkill and ridiculous, and there's far too many times that you do have to make edits to body copy. But perhaps turning your headlines into outlines, text outlines, is a smart thing to do. So there you have it. We've been through a whole long chapter on dealing with type, and now that I see an overset one here, I'm wondering what I did wrong. Perhaps, there we go. I guess I dragged it too far. It's kind of a fun thing to do. So with the styles, we ensure consistency as well. So that's it for the book lectures, and I will talk to you about homework next.